15 days to go. John Kerry and President Bush trade harsh new attacks on the terror war and Social Security. Meanwhile, voting and problems begin in 4 battleground states. Paying the price. What happens now to soldiers who refused a dangerous assignment in Iraq? And divided we stand. The fight over the 10 Commandments and a question, what is the role of church, faith, and religion in politics?
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. 2 weeks from tomorrow, America votes, and if the language used on the campaign trail today is any indication of what we can expect between now and then, the political landscape will be scorched earth by the time the first Tuesday this November rolls around. Today, some of the strongest exchanges yet over Iraq and the war on terror. All of this as early voting began in a number of states. We're going to begin tonight with NBC's Kelly O'Donnell with the Kerry campaign.
Today in Florida, John Kerry had penciled in all domestic issues, but the morning paper quickly changed that. A pivot back to Iraq.
We read that the top commander in Iraq pleaded with the Pentagon for critical supplies in order to counter the growing insurgency in Iraq.
Kerry seized on a memo obtained by the Washington Post, written last December by the commander in Iraq then, Ricardo Sanchez, who noted an urgent need for spare parts and body armor, writing, "I cannot continue to support sustained combat operations with rates this low." Kerry claims the general's plea did not square with the president's many public promises.
I have pledged, as has the Secretary of Defense, to give our troops everything that is necessary to complete their mission.
The Bush campaign says the Pentagon fixed the problem months ago and called it outrageous for Kerry to criticize when he voted against the $87 billion funding for more supplies. While today, Kerry argued the memo fits a pattern of flawed leadership.
Despite the president's arrogant boasting that he has done everything right in Iraq and that he's made no mistakes, the truth is beginning to catch up with him.
Talking to Florida's seniors today, Kerry jumped on still another published news report that said the president told a group of his biggest donors that he would move to privatize Social Security in his second term. Publicly, Mr. Bush has only said he favors allowing younger workers to set aside some of their taxes in private investment accounts. Kerry opposes the idea and claims it could put workers' money at risk in the stock market.
Where do you want them to invest, folks? In WorldCom, in Quest, in Enron? And what happens to the rest of the people in the system?
A potent issue for seniors who live in great numbers in battleground states like Florida, Iowa, and Ohio, as Kerry argues that the president is out of touch with their needs. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, Tampa.
And for his part, President Bush today went hard after John Kerry on terrorism, specifically on 9/11. That story tonight from NBC's David Gregory.
Invoking the horrors of 9/11, Mr. Bush came to New Jersey today, a state hard hit by the attacks, to argue that the first presidential election since that day comes down to a simple question.
Will we stay on the offensive against those who want to attack us? Or will we take action only after we are attacked?
Merging the war on terror with the invasion of Iraq, the president unleashed a retooled attack on Senator Kerry's fitness to assume the role of commander-in-chief, arguing Kerry would be too cautious when considering whether to use preemptive force, as was done in Iraq.
This kind of September the 10th attitude is no way to protect our country. America is safer today because Afghanistan and Iraq are fighting terrorists instead of harboring them.
Speaking of the war, Mr. Bush today accused his opponent of, quote, protest and defeatism, launching this attack, which Kerry aides called a gross distortion of the senator's position on the war.
He has sent the signal that America's overriding goal in Iraq would be to leave, even if the job is not done.
Kerry has discussed goals for troop withdrawal from Iraq, but has also made clear the war must be won. While critics were accusing the president of scare tactics during today's speech, that's exactly what Mr. Bush accused Kerry of employing on Social Security, saying his plan to partially privatize the government retirement program would not jeopardize benefits for current retirees, The president told the Associated Press in an interview today, it's wrong to try to scare people going into the polls. 15 days before the election, the president's final campaign sprint included closer than expected New Jersey, where Mr. Bush lost 4 years ago and now wants to force Kerry to play defense. The balance of the week takes the president to other traditionally Democratic states, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, as well as must-win Florida. The campaign promises to get even more negative as the president tries to convince uncommitted or soft Kerry supporters that he cannot be trusted to win the war on terror. David Gregory, NBC News, St. Petersburg, Florida.
As we mentioned earlier, early voting did get underway today in several states, and taking advantage in Houston, Texas, the president's parents, George and Barbara Bush, they told reporters they love voting for their son. Florida also has opened its early voting today, and NBC's Kerry Sanders is standing by in Miami tonight with a look at how it's going so far. Kerry, what's going on down there?
Well, Tom, there are still lines this first day of early voting in Florida. A huge turnout by Republicans and Democrats caught election officials off guard, and then there were problems checking voters' registrations.
It was not a good start today.
I am so sorry. I really am.
Florida's polls opened early, and the voting stopped almost immediately.
Here I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm an American. I want to vote, and look what's going on. They're making it hard for me to vote.
In South Florida's Broward County, more than half of the early voting precincts shut down when there were computer problems.
There's a wrinkle in the system. Hopefully we'll get it worked out.
In Tampa today, similar computer problems plus a shortage of touchscreen machines sent some irritated voters home. Some still angry after the 2000 election and now suspicious of politics at play.
I just can't understand why we have an appointed supervisor elections in this county, appointed by a Republican governor who happens to be the president's brother. And once again, we're at the polling places struggling to cast our votes.
In Jacksonville, officials opened only one polling location. In this huge city, 758 square miles, critics charge only one polling place disenfranchises voters who live far away. And to make matters worse there, today, the supervisor of elections resigned, citing health problems.
It's a terrible start.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. Sweeping changes made since 2000 were designed to improve Florida's old punch card system. But new touchscreen machines have no paper printouts, prompting a lawsuit supported by Democrats that was in federal court today.
There's no certainty in the machines, there's no certainty in the results, and each and every Floridian under Florida law is required to a manual recount. And these machines can't provide them, so that we have a backup system.
And for those who vote early, a reminder.
They really could miss out on something crucial or dramatic. For instance, in Iraq, maybe there'll be a big counterterrorism effort, or something happens in Afghanistan, or perhaps the stock market crashes or booms.
Tonight, those in line are waiting about 30 minutes before they can cast their vote. Elections officials say they now believe they have traced the problem to an internet connection, a problem that they say they've resolved and that should not be repeated. Tom?
We'll wait and see. NBC's Kerry Sanders tonight in Miami for us. Now back to that memo from the former commander of American forces in Iraq, Rick Sanchez, asking the Pentagon for more and better supplies. Well, John Kerry was making the most of that memo today in Florida. In Iraq, the Army reservists who refused a supply mission last week were waiting to learn which of them, if any, will pay the price for that refusal. From Baghdad tonight, NBC's Jim Maceda with the latest on that investigation.
18 soldiers of the 343rd Quartermaster Company allegedly refused an order to deliver fuel. But U.S. Army officials tell NBC News that investigators are now focusing on 5 individuals, 3 non-commissioned officers and 2 enlisted soldiers. Investigators will be looking into a possible breakdown in discipline or command leadership. Keeping supplies rolling has been critical. Every day, the Army sends out some 3,000 trucks and 7,000 soldiers, 90% from the reserves or National Guard, sometimes driving through ambushes, roadside and suicide bombs.
Knowing it's not a question of if, but when they will be attacked.
From Kuwait to Turkey, 250 truck convoys a day carry 110,000 bottles of water, over 200,000 meals, over 1 million gallons of fuel to frontline commanders like Colonel Dave Abrams. He calls his truckers an inspiration.
They are on the road every single day, and they put more miles on their trucks than anyone else.
The latest incident may be an isolated case, but it highlights what soldiers call increasingly difficult conditions: trucks in disrepair, or without steel plating to protect against bombs, or proper escorts. The Army claims that maintenance and protective armor issues are being fixed, and that all convoys have armed escorts. If found guilty, the soldiers could face demotion, discharge, or even prison, though in this case, the Army may exercise discretion.
If it turns out the safety concerns were well-founded, a commander would want to take that into account.
Army officials say it's likely the unit's company commander will face suspension. For now, the reservists are back with their unit as the U.S. mission's lifeline grinds out another dangerous day. Jim Maceda, NBC News, Baghdad.
Up next, NBC News in depth tonight, Iraq's most wanted. Why can't the United States military find the insurgent leader Abu Musab al-Zarqawi? Later, religion and politics, from the 10 Commandments to public buildings to the presidential vote. Is it a case of divided we stand?
If your doctor says you're at risk for a heart attack, there's a Bayer made just for your heart, and it can have a big impact on your life. It's Bayer Low Dose. It was the first low-dose safety-coated aspirin, and it can significantly reduce your risk of a heart attack. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. And remember, no other brand prevents more heart attacks than Bayer. The more you know, the more you trust Bayer.
Fix-It Incomplete for great fit and strong, long hold. Life with more bite.
A clinical study has shown that Cheerios, made with all natural whole grain oats, added to a low-fat diet, can actually help reduce cholesterol. Just think of them as little life preservers. Certified by the American Heart Association.
This year on our weekend away, Jane and I wanted adventure. I didn't want my asthma to hold me back.
You wanna go where you wanna go. Do what you wanna do.
There's a different kind of asthma controller, Singulair. It's not a steroid. It's a